for the person who is sick, we're like thriving and then a quick death.
Yeah.
We don't want the suffering,
Yeah.
but also for that caregiver, finding those things that make them happy before the death event so that they do have something that they can turn to after their loved one goes.
Usually people will give us that call because that exact reason. They want to age safely in place in home. A lot of families may make that decision too, because if you look at the same patient, healing, recovery process, or just natural aging, where would you do better? In your own home environment, surrounded by your pets, your personal belongings, the place that you grew up, or in a rehab or facility. To each their own. Some people love that facility way, 3 meals brought to them. There's not a right or wrong way, but for that individual that does want to remain at home and live at home as long as possible, Touching Hearts at Home can absolutely help them do that. Clients who call our office are looking anywhere from just companionship, social and cognitive engagement, a few hours a day, a few times a week, all the way up the spectrum to someone very medically complex, needing 24/7 around-the-clock care. While we're non-medical, we work very well with highly medically complex clients because they need that supervision, the oversight, and just making sure all of their needs are met and all of their personal care.
All right, Christina Ramos, welcome.
Thank you
to
so
our
much.
podcast.
Thanks for having us.
We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
I know it's been like we've been trying to get you here, and you finally arrived.
So happy to be here. So thank you guys.
So I want to start off by just talking a little bit about what you do and just telling us, for the most part, where you came from and what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my name is Christina Ramos, Executive Director and Administrator at Touching Hearts at Home, which is a great family story. My parents, Ruben and Rose, started Touching Hearts at Home out of need. So when my grandmother was first diagnosed with dementia, and we were told she's what they call a wander risk, we had no idea what to do. So from there, we had to do a lot of research, looking into state of Florida laws, contacting ACA. We had the fortunate experience, I guess you could say now, looking backwards, but we fortunately got to work with several agencies in town to kind of learn the ins and outs of home care, right way to do things, and then of course kind of the good, bad, and the very ugly.
Yes.
And I'm really proud of my parents through that journey and the struggle and strife. We were able to call ACA to really learn the state of Florida laws and all the governance over home care, the proper ways to do it, and then other ways that people are managing caregiving. From there, Touching Hearts at Home was born, and it was inspired by our family's desire to be a need or resource to other families, as well as being able to do home care the right way.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What does it look like now? Like what would a normal client calling your office be looking for?
Sure. So clients who call our office are looking anywhere from just companionship, social and cognitive engagement, a few hours a day, a few times a week, all the way up the spectrum to someone very medically complex, needing 24/7 around-the-clock care.
Wow.
While we're non-medical, we work very well with highly medically complex clients because, they need that supervision, the oversight, and just making sure all of their needs are met and all of their personal care.
So if someone is, let's say they're living at home and they are taking care of a loved one who has complex medical issues, let's just say they're paralyzed, like from the neck down. What kinds of services would you be providing to that person?
Sure. So in the state of Florida, the different designations with licenses would be medical, something a licensed physician, nurse, or therapist would be able to provide. And then right under that is us with the personal care license. So we can take care of all those activities of daily living,
Yeah.
So bathing, grooming, toileting, hygiene, ambulatory needs, feeding, transportation, running errands. We have a lot of clients in those same kind of scenarios that you just mentioned. And maybe family is in town, but maybe they work full time, or maybe they're not in town and they're across the country. So we can take care of all of their needs in the home and then be there for them or get them to those medical appointments that they need to really get the other side of their healthcare taken care of.
And, so it is interesting because what you're saying, we don't do medical. So you're not like cleaning a wound. You're not
Correct.
distributing pharmaceuticals.
Correct.
But you're doing like bathing.
Yeah.
You know, and some people might think, well, that's a medical need, but
perhaps
it's really just an activity of daily living.
Yeah, correct.
So I guess like some people might think, well, if they don't do medical, they can't help me.
Right.
But really, it's that day to day moving from the bed to
toilet,
the chair to the toilet. Yes.
Yeah.
And you guys can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. It's interesting. I had a client today that I was talking to before I came here, and she is taking care of her mom 24/7. And her mom is experiencing this like anxiety when she's not with her daughter. Her husband died, and now it's daughter 24/7, but daughter like goes to the bathroom and mom gets anxious.
Yep, I believe it. We see that all the time.
What is that?
So, sometimes it's just the comfort, and it takes off that anxiety and that stress of what would I do if I rolled out of bed right now, or what do I do if I have to use the toilet? What we always tell families in those positions, especially those primary caregivers, is allow us to come in and be that personal care, private duty aide, the caregiver doing the dirty work. So that way that daughter can maintain her relationship as the daughter, not the caregiver.
Yes.
And as soon as we get in, it could happen immediately. There's something to it when you see a professional person, smiling face, knowing what they're doing, dressed in scrubs, ready to serve.
Yes.
That can just kind of alleviate all of those chains and, dependencies there.
Yeah. And when I was talking to this client today, I was like, first of all, no one expects care providers to be on 24/7. Like we don't expect nursing home, workers to be there all the time every day.
Correct.
So you need time for yourself or you're going to crash. But then I think the second part of that, which is what you just said, is like when you put on that caregiver hat and that's all you do, you sometimes miss that opportunity of experiencing this time in life with your parent or with your spouse. So for her, like I was saying, to her, I was like, maybe bringing someone in like on Tuesdays, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 hours. That will give you time to maybe you send this person to do the errands or to clean the kitchen or to fold the laundry or even things that help the care provider. I mean, is that something that you guys do as well?
So we would probably classify that as respite care.
Okay.
Respite is where the primary caregiver, family member, whomever is responsible, spouse, son, daughter, sibling, they need time to rest and recharge, as you mentioned. So we would also encourage that primary caregiver to step aside, maybe remove themselves out of the equation. So then when they see our caregiver coming in, it signals, okay, now my daughter, my son, my husband, they get their me time. For some families, it could be a husband who's the primary caregiver who just wants to go play golf, who needs to get...
I have one like that. I have a client like that. He just wants to play golf.
Making sure that the primary caregiver is not slacking on their own healthcare needs and their appointments.
Yes.
I think a gentleman in our community, very vocal, advocating for seniors, and he was so worried about his wife that he neglected his healthcare. And when he went to the doctor for a little pain, it was too late and he died.
Yeah.
So that's an extreme case, but we talk about that family story to really try and illustrate the real need for respite care.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because it is a house of cards on the back of that caregiver. And like, it's not just the primary, patient or client. It's the other family members. Like they might have a husband or a wife and they might have children and they might have grandchildren. And it becomes like such a stressful situation. And then when you have this attachment from that person who has dementia to them, that it's like this double whammy because when they're gone and other people are there trying to care for the person, they feel so anxious. They want their phone number. They want to know they're coming back. They, and it's like, even when they're gone, they can't get a break. And it becomes like this, like very heavy experience in the caregiving. And I'm talking to this client today and I've heard you a lot. I know a little bit, enough to be dangerous. But what I was saying to her is like, we've got to untether that. And like, if we start to have, like, she just ordered the memory board.
Oh,
which
good.
You probably,
we love those.
I think you may have introduced me to those.
Yep.
But, to try and start that process of like, Janet's coming, I will be back. I will return at 2 p.m. All the things, just writing on that memory board.
Yeah.
Tell us about the memory board. What is that about?
Yeah. So, I think the great part of technology and AI is all these new developments and tools coming out. So the memory board, there's several brands out there, makes and models. We just look at reviews. It's a good reminder of not only day and time, like those big clocks, so your loved one can remember when they need to sleep or be awake. But it can also help you program in appointments or those frequently asked questions. Am I going anywhere today? Do I need to be anywhere? You can refer them right back to the board instead of constantly being on that Groundhog's Day rotation. Yeah. So they're incredible. They also incorporate the ability to upload pictures or photographs. So, that loved one that they're so dependent on, well, there's a picture right next to your memory board with all your information. And they're incredible. We love it.
What other technology? What's coming out? What do you got for me?
Let's hear it. We've been testing with a company in Silicon Valley. They picked us as an agency to try to test some of their AI tech.
Yeah.
So some of the current technology out there can track falls and monitor a senior or loved one, but it requires a wearable. So I think as well as I do. In a memory care, a wearable may not be a solid solution. Maybe for a gentleman, they don't wear jewelry, so they don't want to wear a bracelet or a necklace. We hear these common complaints quite a bit. So this solution would be plugged in the client's room or home, depending on if they live in a nursing home or at home. And it tracks motion. It senses, falls. It also can pick up on blood pressure and sleeping activity.
Wow.
So it's a great solution for when we're not there. Maybe someone just has caregivers during the day, but they're really not sure what happens at home at night. Does mom sleep all night? Does dad walk around the house pacing? We can actually have this technology in the home to really tell us about what's going on. And in addition, it can monitor, for those days or times of the day when the loved one needs the most supervision and care. So perhaps they don't have care at night, but we see mom's actually had 2 unreported falls every night this week, God forbid. It's a great reason to really invest in not only the technology, but the caregiver as well.
Is it like a camera or is it just like a it's so,
because
that's great. Because I think a lot of people get very defensive about cameras and being watched.
Yep. And so whether it's watching or listening, that's the feedback and the complaints that we hear from most adults and families.
Yes.
So
privacy.
This wouldn't. It's using Bluetooth, and however the tech does it, it's not listening or recording.
Wow.
It's monitoring motion and falls.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
Oh, I love that.
They plug in.
Okay.
And you would tell them the square footage of the person's apartment or nursing home room or bedroom in the home, living room if they spend time there. And then they send you the correct number of adapters. So we're hopeful.
I love
We're testing it with a few clients just to see. And it's instant monitoring. So it's almost like that ADT panic button and more intelligent data all wrapped in one.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, what I have experienced with the technology is if we get people started on it early. So I know with Alexa or, using their apartment that might be wired.
Right.
And it's voice activated. If we can get there early enough during the dementia progression, then it can stick.
Yeah.
And then we can really use that as a tool, call so-and-so, or I need this, or I've fallen, and all these things that we can program in. So it's been really useful. But the key is getting the technology there early enough. With this technology, it won't have to be early.
Correct.
Right. And it's just going to work.
Yep. And then they'd have touching hearts at home monitoring it around the clock. A family member could too. But again, we're trying to get this work off the family. So whatever we can do to help when we're there or not present.
I want to talk more about you in the community of Gainesville and what a shining star you are.
Thanks. Means a lot.
I love how engaged you are with community and how it feels to me like you really are a very good supporter of other businesses and trying to promote, really people doing good things in the world.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that. What prompted that and how have you gotten so involved in so many? I just saw on Santa Fe, that you had been there with, Sherry Houston.
Yeah, great woman.
So yeah, tell me about some of that.
Sure.
So, those things that you're doing.
At Touching Hearts at Home, we made a conscious decision. While there are many great advertisers out there and great ways to get a brand or a phone number out, we are very intentional about how we spend our marketing and advertising dollars. And by that, we don't do it. So we would rather inject those dollars right here in our community and the zip codes that we serve. We have a community advisory board, lots of great people who give us input and ideas, but ultimately we get everything approved. So while there are so many worthwhile causes out there, Shannon, as you know, we really had to strategize on what we wanted to support. And it's seniors and adults with disabilities in the 10 counties that we serve. So anything that we do, we'd rather spend those advertising dollars to put together a senior prom or a health fair or a great fundraiser to benefit Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And we vet all the organizations that we support to make sure that the dollars aren't going to a national headquarters or somewhere else in Florida. We want the monies to stay right here. So Elder Care of Alachua County, the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's Foundation. It's a great select few. But we go all in when we find a cause we like.
And those are great organizations. You know, the Parkinson's issue, I'm sure you're seeing it just, you know, people coming in to need those services from you. It's been really almost like exponentially like growing with the diagnoses. So true. And
so true.
But on Alzheimer's disease, it's been interesting with this development of the blood test. And I just want to pick your brain on this because I bet you have great insight into this. So we get a lot of clients that come in and they have a dementia diagnosis. And I say, is it Alzheimer's? Is it vascular dementia? Is it Lewy body? What is it? What type of dementia is it? And they will tell me they don't know. And they say, well, my primary care physician didn't think it's important to know, you know? And I like having seen people who have vascular dementia versus Alzheimer's disease versus, you know, Lewy body dementia. There is definitely a distinct difference between the three of them. And the timeline from onset to death is very different. And if it may not matter to the doctor, but it matters to a family trying to plan financially, trying to figure out, you know, how long are we going to be in this, you know, 24/7 caregiver role? So what has your experience been with that? Is it similar or have you had like a different exposure?
I would say rewind to when my grandmother was first diagnosed. Our worlds were flipped upside down. We had no idea. Maybe you'd seen it in the movies like The Notebook, but didn't really know much more than that. Back then, there weren't many resources available. The Alzheimer's Association had a website, and that's what we used. You know, I think back to then, and even the World Wide Web, there wasn't much for us to dissect or chew on or kind of digest and understand. Fast forward to now, the Alzheimer's Association, the Alzheimer's Association Foundation. There's lots of great organizations out there who are doing a lot of good research to really lay it out in layman's terms. So, you know, I also love the development of the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 hotline. So if a family is noticing these things, gosh, how I wish we could have picked up the phone and just called someone to tell us what to do next.
That's great to know. I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, you can call at any time. So then they can kind of point you in the right directions of when it's time to see a doctor versus what could be normal aging. I think that so many families, and I was just having a conversation last night socially at an event, and someone was telling me about their spouse and that this is happening. And, you know, these weren't little things, and you could tell this individual knew these were big things. And one of the other friends said, you've got your head in the sand. You need to go head on, face this.
That's like me.
You're
like being kind. I'm like, you need to get to the doctor.
It's so important. But, you know, you could tell she really didn't want to hear. She already sensed it. But I came in with the voice of reason, you know, there are so many benefits to getting treated early, to catching this early, to, like you said, be more prepared, more well-informed, learn what to expect, and also how to keep your loved ones safer, more comfortable, and how to provide that quality of life. Right. So, the studies show that treating it head on early on can actually extend life, as well as make the symptoms more manageable and more bearable to live with. God bless them.
Yes.
So I would say, right now we are really working with the Alzheimer's advocacy group to try and get this Medicare paid for blood test.
Why is
approved.
This not covered? I do not understand it.
Now that we have it, it's a huge blessing. But if we could already diagnose people with just a blood prick and a test that has really good efficacy, this is huge.
Right.
I'm just really proud to be here in the state of Florida, where we're really leading the way with other huge states like New York. I'm on the Alzheimer's front. So I'm encouraged by it. I know the state of Florida is spending, we go up to the Capitol every year, at least we try to, from getting monies approved for the Alzheimer's bus, which goes into underprivileged neighborhoods to try and do more outreach where they might not otherwise hear the word Alzheimer's to any other affluent neighborhood. They're out and about in our community, and I know we get them here to Gainesville for our annual health fair. But the spending there's also a dementia center in the state of Florida where families can go get training, get resources they can call during business hours. So we see a lot happening in the state of Florida, but right now the kind of roadblock that we see here in town is, once you get that referral from the primary care doctor to go see a neurologist, we are so fortunate and so blessed that our neurologists in town, especially at the UF Excel Institute, they're world renowned.
Yes.
But sometimes you have to wait now for appointments, not until 2027.
I know.
So think about it. A blood prick. Okay, you've got it. Now let's treat it. Let's offer some solutions. Another act and bill that we're trying to get passed at the state level would be to give healthcare practitioners more training on Alzheimer's and dementia. And a personal story, my grandmother was in the ER. She probably had a UTI, dealing with a lot of other medical issues, but everybody on staff, they were so curious why she was all calm through the day and like clockwork at 5:15. And we had to educate the entire unit on what sundowning was. They'd never heard of it. They never trained on it. So when this bill was, proposed, we are all for it. Imagine earlier diagnosis and better training, or providing the opportunities for additional training to our healthcare practitioners. It would be a home run.
Well, and I think also to your point about like FIXL and Parkinson's disease, like if we know that it's not a tremor related Parkinson's, it can make it seem like it is just Alzheimer's, and so if you can eliminate Alzheimer's as being the cause of the dementia, and then you shift into more neurological, deficit issues, then we get Parkinson's medications on early enough, it can change their lives.
Absolutely. And the families' lives too. Can you imagine those family caregivers?
I know, right? Getting the dopamine to start to come out of your brain, and all the other, good things that happen once we get that levodopa on board, and educating doctors. I will say, like, it's hard. My daughter's in med school right now, right? And so, I'm kind of watching her walk through this, and I continually ask questions about, what kind of training she's getting, and, pushing her towards, going to hospice and rounding with the hospice doctors to understand death a little more. Because she just had a couple of her first patient death experiences, which were not pleasant. We'll talk about that in a minute, but also I think that it is challenging for physicians to learn everything about everything.
It's true. It's true.
And it's a lot. And so like, I just keep thinking about like, what can we do better? And I think part of it is, I just went to a seminar in Texas, and the doctor is a hospice doctor.
Wow.
And he was saying, we cannot depend on the medical community to educate people about their medical needs.
So true.
And it's like a sad thing, but we can't, because payback from, insurance companies is getting lower. They're expected to do more. They meet with patients for such short time periods. So what he was suggesting is that we need to also be doing a lot of the educating and give people information so that
Yep.
they have the ability
Yep.
to make informed decisions instead of depending on doctors for
Yep.
a lot of that information giving and decision making.
Yep.
And so to your point, just the very idea, a lot of people don't even know there's a blood test for Alzheimer's disease and the different really paths you can take once you have the diagnosis. Because like you said, there are some medications at the very beginning that can help to prolong, the progression of the disease. Although it has to be pretty early on from what I understand. Yeah, this is great, Christina. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh my gosh, you too. I think of other people in the community helping to educate and guide people through these really challenging processes. And you guys are right there with us. So we love being partners.
Yes. And I'll see you in Tallahassee. We need to coincide because we are usually there doing exploitation, vulnerable adult
Thank you for all that work too. You're incredible.
But on that, it is so important for us to be at the legislature, kind of educating them on what we're seeing at the ground floor.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, this is a tough one. I know.
I'm ready.
Because you've seen it now. And what we are seeing in our practice is this really changing world of facility, residency, and placement. So we're seeing that, first of all, you can't find a bed anywhere. Like, it's really challenging to find a bed in a better facility today. It's like you have to get on a wait list. You're going to be on the wait list for 6 months. People can't afford it. I mean, the cost of facilities now, memory care, long-term care, nursing home level of care, and, assisted living facility, even independent living has gotten so expensive. Most people can't afford it, with their regular Social Security, even if they have a pension. So unless you're really rich, it's not even financially possible. But then when you go there, I don't know about you, but like the quality of care in facilities, tell me what you've seen.
I would say globally, workforce shortages have impacted every industry across the board. And if somebody tells us they haven't, then they've either got the magic ball or they're lying. So, I think there's something to be said for the line of work that we do, because it's not realistic to expect that in any facility, rehab, CCRC, any living community, that your loved one is going to have one-on-one care 24/7.
Right.
It's a great idea, but that's what we provide. So, there's definitely a need for us, for those patients who maybe have dementia and forget they have a broken hip and can't get out of bed freely. Definitely a purpose there. A purpose for us in nursing homes or memory cares. If someone has some disruptive behaviors, and usually what we find when we come in with the experienced certified staff is this person just wants to be seen and heard and, get the attention that they deserve. So again, a caregiver can mitigate all of that in a nursing home. But overall, I would say, it's tough. We're competing for the same certified nursing assistants and home health aides as every hospital, rehab, nursing home, you name it. And I think that's something that we have committed to doing differently than maybe other home care industries or buildings and facilities. And it's much harder, but we could have 80 candidates come into our office to interview for a position as a caregiver at Touching Hearts. And Shannon, we'd be lucky if we hired maybe 8 to 10. And you could tell me that's crazy. We need staff. But in our mind, it's quality over quantity.
Yes.
And we don't want the people that just want a paycheck. We want the people who are called to serve, who want to give back, who have the personal stories, and they're crying in my office that they got into this field because they witnessed their mom suffer through this or that, and they were their caregiver. Those are the people that go out of their way, that go above and beyond, that make time for each resident, that they're always going to be on task, on duty, on shift, whether with us or a nursing home. And they really care about their work.
I like to call it mission driven.
Yeah.
It's like they are in the job because they want to help people.
Yep.
And we do that here at our office too. We're like, do you want to help older people age and die better? Because if you do, that's the mission. If it's a calling,
you're in.
Yes. But it's true, because I've witnessed it. I mean, so many times I'll go out to see clients and the care provider is like doing the dishes and like laundry and like checking on us, or do we need anything? And then sometimes we'll see someone who's sitting at the dining room table on their cell phone. And I'm like, oh my God.
It hurts. It
right?
hurts to
and
see
you're
that.
like, and they're saying to me, why are we having this person in our home?
Right.
It's disruptive. We don't have privacy.
Yeah.
And we're still having these struggles. So
Yeah,
it
it's
is
awful.
definitely, I appreciate that. Okay. But let me ask you this, because this is another trend that I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing that people want to stay as independent as possible. And I know we know the boomers are coming.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I want to stay home
Mm-hmm.
or in independent living.
Mm-hmm.
I think is also what we see is a lot of people that are in independent living and they don't want to move to that next level of care. They don't want to be in assisted living.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in memory care. So what they're doing is they're bringing in care providers
Mm-hmm.
to provide that little supplemental
Mm-hmm.
level of care
Mm-hmm.
so that they can stay in that lower. So what is that? Tell me about that. And is that something that you guys see a lot of?
Yeah. So usually people will give us that call because that exact reason. They want to age safely in place and home. A lot of families may make that decision too, because if you look at the same patient, healing, recovery process, or just natural aging, where would you do better? In your own home environment, surrounded by your pets, your personal belongings, the place that you grew up, or in a rehab or facility. To each their own. Some people love that facility way, 3 meals brought to them, love the activities, can go be head of the activity council or residence council. There's not a right or wrong way. But for that individual that does want to remain at home and live at home as long as possible, Touching Hearts at Home can absolutely help them do that. Sometimes there's a great cost savings to it when you really put the numbers to it, depending on where they'd be looking at living. And part of that is mainly because of like meals or the nursing costs if they do need that additional, support. And what we think is great about it is whatever that person may be suffering from or recovering from, we see them bounce back so much faster.
Oh, yes.
Quality of life, the smiles come back to their face.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we'll get families who, dad or mom is begging, crying, pleading, get me out of this rehab. I won't make it 100 days.
Yeah.
Let's get them home, bring the rehab home with the home health side, the medical part, and then have Touching Hearts at Home there 24/7 for a temporary period, maybe, so we can extend the finances as much as possible.
Yeah.
But then we can really get a baseline to understand, when does your loved one need the most support, from this hour to this hour, and then again maybe at night just for this time period. So we can get really smart and targeted. And then something else that I appreciate when my parents started Touching Hearts at Home is what we noticed is most agencies have like a flat rate across the board. So whether you need bottom line care, just level entry companionship, or you're medically complex, we were getting charged for that medically complex client when my grandma just needed some companionship.
Yeah.
So we really like to assess each client individually to assign their unique rate for whatever they're going through. And then when they recover, we can get them to a healthy new normal. We can increase or decrease their rate depending on what's going on.
Do you guys also come in when we're in that independent? Like, I know a lot of people that are like at the Village or they're at a CCRC like Okamic and they don't want to go to assisted living. They're maybe on a walker, but they just want to have their spacious apartment and they love it and they decorated it themselves and they've been there for 2 years and maybe one of them is experiencing that higher level of care need, but they just can't get that care. Is that also an opportunity where you're seeing care providers coming in and doing those services?
I think one of the big challenges that a lot of families will face on the front end is maybe mom or dad or mom and dad cannot manage the giant house, the giant lawn, all the maintenance and upkeep.
Yes.
So that's no problem. We'll help them downsize. We'll help them get rid of some of their things or the majority of their things, maybe an estate sale, or help divvy it up amongst family members. We've seen certain families who say, you know what, we can't live in this mansion anymore. 7 bedrooms, it's way too many for mom and dad. Let's downsize and we'll go to an apartment. Mom and dad can live there and age happily with their caregivers. The important thing, though, is when we're not there, we want to make sure they're safe. So, Shannon, we've seen it so many times where the family may have a long-term care insurance policy, which would cover our services 80 to 100%. And they don't want to activate the policy yet. They're saving it for a rainy day.
Yep.
Well, this could be, a 4-year policy, and that rainy day might just be now. So what we'll see is, they just want to do the minimum number of hours to save the most amount of money. And, we don't sleep well at night, and we're mandatory reporters. So if when we leave, mom's turning on the stove thinking it's the radio or the TV, that's not a healthy way to age, or if we come to work and dad's outside naked, roaming the neighborhood, trying to figure out where he lives, that's not going to be sustainable or a healthy way to do it. But with the right care plan in place, with the right resources in place, it's definitely doable.
And that new technology that you're talking about.
Yeah,
that's totally very powerful. Okay. I want to talk about death.
Okay, let's do it.
So, just so many things coming up recently around the idea of like having a death without suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you guys kind of help people with this transition? I know that it's becoming more, again, it's the boomers.
Yeah.
All the baby boomers are like, I don't want to suffer before I die. So that this discussion about, really, how do we prevent an end of life experience that is, not suffering and it's consistent with what the patient wants or the client wants instead of sometimes family members can step in. It's funny because my daughter told me this story about one of her patients and, not to get too detailed, but it was clear that she was on a path of death and, the apathy, not sleeping, not eating, I'm sorry, sleeping a lot, sleeping 20 hours a day. And it was just heading that way and so many other health conditions, but the family wanted so many things done and they wanted interventions and all these things. And yet she'd had dementia for 10 years also. So wasn't able to really even communicate with the family, but they wanted all these things done. And so how is that for you guys? Are you seeing these same issues? And how do you help prepare families for these things and avoid suffering if that's possible?
Sure. So, when it comes to private duty, nobody does it better than us. And we can be, that expert voice there. I think the important thing to do for us, we say we go beyond care, helping them educating them on other resources is really pushing them to make those tough decisions. And that's a question we ask at the onset of signing up for our services. Do you know what your loved one wants? What are their wishes? Or have they talked to a hospice? Have they identified a hospice program that they'd like? If we're noticing real decline, we would make a referral for palliative care with whatever hospice that they want.
Great.
But it's a great way to dip your toes in and kind of feel out the hospice world. So we would start there. From our standpoint too, each and every day that we're in the home, if we can find a way to bring joy or love to that client, there are so many circumstances where we had one client who wanted to go camping and we knew, maybe we couldn't get her to a state park on the floor in a tent, but we did set it up in our living room with a tent and she could go camping and, she loved that. Just those special, meaningful moments that we could provide. Little things. Some of our clients, they look forward to Fast Food Friday every week. They get their Chick-fil-A or their Subway or their Diet Coke.
Nice.
Just really trying to make sure that whatever time they have is meaningful. Yeah. We talked about the family relationships too, but the family caregiver, that role, it can get so strained. So really making sure that the family's spending healthy, quality time, enjoying those moments. And maybe we'll take them to Sweet Branch Park to go look at birds. And we'll take care of the client and golf cart, whatever tram system they have out there. But really letting the family enjoy their loved one who may or may not be dying. Yes. From our team standpoint, we really do try to work with all the hospices to get them better prepared on the training side. how to determine signs and symptoms of maybe transitioning, starting, or, maybe getting closer to that end of life stage. And so having those working relationships with a hospice provider, if they're already on services, if they're not, it is having that hard conversation, not as a licensed practitioner, but friend, a private duty home care. We've seen this. You may want to consult a hospice. Could perhaps be within that 6-month window. We can then talk to the hospice provider if the family allows us, because we really want to be that continuum of care linked with all other providers. So we could call the hospice nurse for that client to say, hey, we're noticing this. There's a rattle. There's a cough. They haven't eaten in 6 days. They're turning colors, et cetera, et cetera. And then the hospice provider can come in and do what they do best and have those real difficult conversations. For us, it's very important to know what the client's wishes are in terms of a DNR. Who to call? Do we call 911 or do we call that hospice 911 number? And really listening to the patient. Shannon, so often when a client who has a DNR and keeps talking about how they just want to go and they don't want to be saved, when the moment of terror, panic comes, they want us to call 911 or to call that hospice, but also call 911, and they want to reverse the DNR. So we do what we're told. Our caregivers know they could be faced in that predicament and just being
people
prepared.
Change their minds.
Totally. Every day we see it. And then, where I see our leadership team becoming an asset to the family too in the end stages is the power of attorney, or maybe the children, or maybe the spouse. They need someone to talk to. If we're seeing that person is struggling, maybe they're abusing substances or drinking too much or not sleeping or not doing the right things that they need to do for their health, we will intervene and get them the support and the care that they need. A lot of times too, we see the family caregivers grieving while the loved one's still here, which is very common. And they may not realize how that's coming across to their loved ones. So again, just trying to be this peaceful barrier and person in the home with our caregiver, trying to keep the peace. But then just making sure the loved one's prepared, or the caregivers are prepared for when that time does come. How will you respond? And have you thought of this? And talk to hospice.
And I'm just curious, do most people want to be at home when they die, or do most people transition over to a hospice house?
I think that is one topic that people are very clear on what they want or don't want. I do not want to die in my home. Or I want to be working out in my backyard, on the lake, in my living room, surrounded by loved ones. So that is one decision we don't see them kind of changing their minds on. I think that's important to know too. So whoever your hospice provider is can honor those wishes. For sure. And unfortunately, we see so often, and I know you see it, but maybe one son or daughter has a different idea than another son or daughter. And for us, we can't navigate or steer that, but we can focus on the client just to make sure that no matter what the family decides, they are loved, supported, and properly cared for.
It's hard. But I mean, the nice thing in Florida is that we have one designated healthcare surrogate. So there should never be a debate between two of them, because only one, only one gets to make the decision. And that was done intentionally. But it's a challenge. We've had clients who hang on. We had one, we could not believe how long she hung on. And it was very challenging because we had family kind of saying, you can go, it's okay. We're going to be fine. She did not want to go. She was not ready. Be me. Right? She was not ready. But so sometimes that can happen too, which can be so hard on the family. So hard because they're kind of in that in between. Yes. And it's like, having the right voice and being able to deliver messages, but sometimes they're just not received.
Absolutely. I think
this fear of death, and that can be very challenging as well. And I think sometimes doctors are super challenged by the idea of death, and they don't want to talk about the fact that this is coming for them. And so the clients sometimes come to us and they don't know how much time they have because they haven't been told that. And this idea that the medical system really they want to cure people. They don't want to help people die, but really everyone's going to die.
Yeah. It is crazy, where I think there's a gap or maybe a miss that's just not talked about is the grief process.
Yes.
After the loved one has passed or died, the first thing we ask our caregivers when we have to give them the sad news that someone's passed is, are you okay? And for most of our caregivers, they've spent more time with this person than even their own family.
Right.
And, I've always prayed that I wouldn't get desensitized to death because, that just sounds awful. But today we still haven't. 15 years later, every client is like family. And, some hit harder than others, just depending on how long we've been with them, how many years we've been with them. But for the caregivers too, we understand it. They've been there for years in many cases.
Yeah.
And so, are they okay? Do they need grief counseling? And I don't think that many families or people out there realize most hospices do offer free grief counseling.
Good grief counseling. And also it's what I have found is really effective for people is just to be in a support group.
That's true too.
Yeah. And sometimes we'll suggest to our clients who are in, spousal situations where they're the caregiver. And, what we always worry about is the spouse who's left because they may have been that full-time caregiver or caregiver with
nothing.
Right. And we often see another death event, within that first year after the first spouse dies, especially in long-term marriages, it increases by 50%. But if you look in our client base of people who have been long-term caregivers and then the spouse dies, that percentage is much higher.
I believe it. And it'll take years off your life.
Yeah. Because you feel like relief and a sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I don't have to take care of this person anymore. But it was also someone that you promised, to spend the rest of your life with. Yeah. And so there's a guilt and there's a sense of shame that you feel relief. And it's just all these emotions for so long. And it's really challenging.
What we see too, Shannon, and I think it's important, is that family caregiver, they don't even realize it, but they have resigned from all of their friends, all of their social groups, all of the activities that they used to enjoy. So when we get in there knowing this is for respite, we are pushing. Have you called that friend you haven't talked to? But I haven't talked to her in a year. Today's the day. You should go get lunch with her today while we're there. Or why don't you just go pick up the tennis racket again? You can always learn it and go get back in those groups. And so often that helps prepare them for a better kind of journey once their loved one does pass.
Yeah, we call it thriving.
Yeah.
And, that's always been our main focus is to have the caregiver thriving. And, for the person who is sick, we're thriving and then a quick death. We don't want the suffering, but also for that caregiver, finding those things that make them happy before the death event so that they do have something that they can turn to after their loved one goes. But is there any story that you could share with us about an impact that you have seen through the services that you provide? Can you share it with that?
Absolutely. So there's two that come to mind. The first one is definitely a more heartstrings connection for sure. A lady came to us early on during the first kind of COVID variant that came through. She was one of the first cases at one of the local hospitals and, totally changed her life, medically speaking. Pretty young, all things considered. She was definitely our youngest client of record at the time when she signed on. And initially she just said, I'm getting discharged. I'll need 2 weeks of short-term care. I'm going to bounce back and I'm going to be better. So I just need 2 weeks of care. Started with just some daytime hours. And 3.5 years later, we were renewing services every 2 weeks. It just kind of became a thing for her. She didn't have any family. She had a lot of friends here in town from a temple, but obviously we all know, initially people can be great and they have the best intentions, but it's not sustainable. That's why professional caregivers are great. Instead of needing just daytime hours, she needed around the clock. So 24/7.
Wow.
And with no emergency contacts. I'll never forget the day she gave me the call and said she needed, a real emergency contact to help her through end of life or whatever was coming her way. So she asked me to be her contact. I was crying. Yes, I'll be your contact. I love you too. But we were with her until her last breath. And luckily I was able to be there as well. on New Year's Day. So, the holidays always hit hard. We always see a lot of our clients hanging on. She was trying to hold on for a daughter that I guess was coming, who maybe had been out of the picture for quite some time, who wanted to come back around. And so she missed her by like an hour, but we were there, and
yes,
that's a fun story. We definitely helped her for a very long time, and she'll always stay with me. Another one called us. It was actually a case manager's father who had been living at home with his wife, who was a vibrant triathlete, nationally renowned.
Wow.
Always fit, always, done hair, nails, very young, all things considered, with our clientele. And I guess some really serious trauma had happened with her own parents. For the last year and a half, she didn't want to leave her house. She was totally relying on alcohol to cope, wasn't taking care of herself at all. Teeth were rotting. I met her. She had yellow skin. The jaundice was there. She hadn't left the house, the husband told us, hadn't gone to the gym, hadn't driven her car. The first day, start of services, our caregiver had her up and Adam driving her car with the top down. She actually went to her gym for the first time ever. People were amazed. We were 24/7 there, and the husband would always come by our office with little goodies or treats. I just don't know how you guys did it, but you did it. You got my wife back. We were able to get her into an alcohol rehab clinic.
Yeah.
And she's thriving now. So it was phenomenal to see, God.
Yeah.
But we love what we do, and we're blessed to serve. And when you see stuff like that, miracles happen every day, and we see it firsthand. So it's our great care team that we're thankful for.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Powerful stories. Oh, the New Year's Day one though. Oh.
New Year's Day always hits different after
that.
I
it's so funny. I mean, so many times I have these death stories with clients, and I love to talk to them about what happened after their loved one dies, because what they really want is to share what happened.
Yeah.
Because there's so much magic usually surrounding the death event. And so often I hear stories about we were in the room with her, we stepped out to talk to the nurse, and we came back and she was gone.
Aww.
Right? And sometimes it's people think they want their family there, and they do the energy transfer, but then they wait.
Yeah.
Or maybe daughter was on her way.
Yeah.
And she was I don't really want her to see me this way, and so it's
all the time.
Right? It's we never know what it's gonna be like, but it is powerful. The moment can just be such a powerful moment. And it's we dread it so much, but really when it happens and you hear from loved ones after the event, there's usually some sort of magic that happens during that time. Yeah. It's very peaceful, and it feels like it's not the end.
Yeah.
Just doesn't feel like the end. Any last thoughts you want to leave for our viewers about, the process?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, something you touched upon was support groups, and there's so many wonderful support groups, but our favorite, we host our own second Tuesday of every month at Queen of Peace Catholic Church.
Nice.
It's non-denominational, but it has been a phenomenal journey for the last 2.5 years. We've been able to support so many people, and we always have guest speakers. So we'd love to have you come speak to our group. We even take tours of senior living communities. It's a really tight-knit group. And the unique thing is, after a lot of people have lost their spouses, they still participate to try and help and serve as a resource to others. The Savvy Caregiver group offered by Elder Options too. Phenomenal, top notch. So if anyone is struggling out there, please, look into these resources.
Is this support group that's you said it's at Queen of Peace?
Yeah.
Every second Tuesday of every month.
Yeah.
What time?
It's from 3 to 4.
Okay. And that support group is intended for people who are caregivers of loved ones?
Can be. Yep.
All right. But is it broader than that, or who else?
It's for seniors or adults with disabilities.
Okay.
So we have some parents coming for adult children with physical needs. We have a lot of adults coming with their spouse who may have Alzheimer's and dementia. We can keep them busy and preoccupied. If you can't get away, without your loved one there.
How nice.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It's really great.
How many people do you get?
It depends. We can have upwards of 50 in
Wow.
smaller groups sometimes.
That's lovely.
It's amazing. And it's a very close-knit group. So
that's beautiful.
Lots of bonds form when you're in the right support group.
Thank you so much for doing these
Shannon.
things.
Thank you.
It's really amazing what you're doing out there. So
it's calling. So we feel blessed to serve.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'd love to do it alongside you guys. So thanks for
we
being
love
our
it
partners.
too. All right. So thank you very much for joining us. And we'll be hearing more from you, I'm sure.
Awesome.
If this episode made you think of someone who might benefit from hearing it, we encourage you to share it. These conversations matter. And to stay connected with future episodes of Thriving to the Finish Line, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for spending time with us.